I'm super excited for this panel. You guys are going to learn a lot. I'm going to learn a lot. So I'm just going to get right into it. First, I'm super excited to introduce Stephen Harrison. Stephen is the president of Vino Shipper. He's been at the forefront of revolutionizing the wine industry by leveraging technology to simplify direct-to-consumer sales, or DTC sales. Vino Shipper has emerged as a pivotal platform that connects wineries with consumers, ensuring compliance, ease of access, and an enriched wine purchasing experience for consumers. So welcome, Stephen. Next, we have the pleasure of welcoming Maurice Anderson, the founder and CEO of AMG Branding. Maurice is a trailblazer in the branding and marketing sphere, known for his innovative strategies that elevate brands and connect them with their target audiences in meaningful ways. At AMG Branding, Maurice leads a team of creative professionals in crafting compelling narratives and immersive brand experiences that resonate across diverse markets. And Lafette is one of your clients, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, that's right. And finally, it's my honor, not only as a panelist, but also as a Texan, to introduce James Harris, the Senior Director of Diversity and Inclusion and Supplier Diversity at H-E-B. James is a champion of diversity and inclusivity, working tirelessly to ensure that these values are embedded within the core of H-E-B's operations and culture. His efforts in supplier diversity have paved the way for more equitable and inclusive business practices, opening the doors for underrepresented suppliers and entrepreneurs in the retail industry. His leadership has not only fostered a more diverse supplier network, but has also enhanced the customer experience by reflecting the rich tapestry of the communities that H-E-B serves. I have introduced you guys in my way, but I would really love for whatever I have missed for you guys to fill in, because all three of you do so much more than your bios say. So.
So I want to just thank AAAV for actually inviting me to come and speak. We've worked as Vino Shipper with a multitude of small craft producers in taking them to market. To date, we have about 3,000 clients, small producers around the country on our platform. Some of you are here, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Just to put that in perspective, that's about 45,000 SKUs that we make available around the country. The business is a technology company. That's our background. Great team of people around the country, but the goal is we built it on top of an actual liquor company, and so it gave us licenses so we could partner with the producers we work with and get their products around. We are focused solely on direct sales at this time, so that would either be direct to consumer or direct to trade. For those of you who may not know, there are 3 channels to distribution. There are DTC, which is direct to consumer. There's direct to trade, which is a producer to trade. And then there's we just call it the warehouse process, which is the old 3-tier system. But anyway, so that's what we are. We're based out of Windsor, California. And although I told my wife this was an easy business, we'd be in and out for 3 years, she reminds me that for now the last 18 years that I said it would be 3 years. So we've been in it for 18 years now. So there we go.
Great. Well, thank you for letting me be here. It's been my pleasure, being amongst great people. I've been in the industry for about 25 years. I started this company back in 2019, and I was playing golf with a young gentleman back there called Chuck Speed, and James' good friend Terry Williams with H-E-B. And I just said one day, I was like, this whole movement's going on with George Floyd. What can I do to give back? And I said, I'm gonna take good minority brands and I'm gonna take them mainstream. And that's what I did. My first client, 2 of my first clients, was I did a one-off deal with the McBride sisters, and I got them into H-E-B. The second, which is he's still with me to this day, is Dane Lafette de Rosé. As you see, he is a hands full, so I stay busy. But I also have Love Corkscrew as well, working with Chris Sean, helping her build her brand. We're just launched in HEB, and we're in about 52 stores. Only supposed to be in 25 stores, but the brand is so hot, it's just blowing up. So, yeah, popping. So basically what I do is I take your brand and I help you go mainstream. I'm more on the help you really manage your brand, the distribution network, and also help you establish your sales in major retails, whether it's Target, Whole Foods, HEB, Total Wines on a national level. So it sounds kind of easy, but it's really not. People might consider myself a broker, but I'm not really a broker. I'm really a consultant because I truly work with your brand and help you build your brand. And I also stir you the right way. I don't say, hey, look, you go in 150 HEB stores and give me the profit off of it. I'll make all the commission off of it. I don't do that because I don't make commission. And plus, I know that how much it's going to take for you to go into 150 stores, I don't need your commission because you're not going to survive. That's just the truth of the matter. So I give you hard, honest truth, and I really care about your brand because I don't look what's in front of me, I look at what's ahead of me, and I really care about building brands, great minority brands.
Awesome. Thank you. I want to commend the whole group. Let's do this. The whole panel. You know, I'm really excited about this discussion because it gives the array of what's required to get into distribution, alternative channels. And I just want to thank you for facilitating. This is a very powerful group. I hope from, at least from the early conversations we had, the four of us, I was more in awe of what they were saying than what I had to say. I had to go back and I need to put more notes in here. But really just for the vision, for AAAV, and for Angie for convening such a powerful group. So I'm really anxious to get into it.
So I'd like to start with you, Stephen. With your experience at Vino Shipper, how have you seen the DTC consumer landscape evolve, and what emerging technologies do you believe will significantly impact the wine market?
So I actually bought myself a piece of paper to keep myself on target because I could talk for the rest of the day on this topic. So in terms of technologies, I mean, you know, the main ones are obviously the website for the DTC. We've also got a mobile app because we're sort of putting the way to sell directly in the hands of the producers. So technology-wise, it's nothing new. What we do talk about is keeping the actual website for direct sales simple and clean. Your marketing message should be done prior to them landing on your site, and your site is this conversion agent, really. It's like get them in, get them out, and they're happy. Your messaging has got to have gone through to them prior to that point in time. So, you know, there's a good amount of that. Packaging, again, we do represent 3,000 producers around the country. Wine labels are a little boring these days. There's nothing much to differentiate them. We work in the cider industry and the mead industry. Those guys, I think they drink before they design. They have some of the most classic looking labels that like, you know, differentiate themselves. They do have a little bit more freedom in some cases. So packaging is really important. I don't know whether any of you have seen the new 50 cent label for his champagnes. That is a mind-blowing package that he's put together for that product. You know, and it's differentiated. It's expensive, but it's differentiated. And so, you know, the technologies, most of them are there. I think the one that freaked me out the most was the checkout, which was a retina scan. So like really forward thinking, you just hold your phone up, scans your retina, it's gonna check you out, and you're done. That works in most things, but then you've got the regulators around the states, and have you age verified them, you know, and all of that. So technologies to manage age verification, pre-purchase, all of those things, there's just some natural barriers that cause problems in that respect. And like I say, just stop me. We've got lots of topics. I can talk on this one. I'm happy to take questions. But, you know, The technologies are there. I mean, you can spin up a Squarespace website, drop a shopping cart, and be selling in 5 days. I mean, it's like you can do it really quick, and I think at some point in time, what we do see, people overthink the launch portion and spend a lot of money getting ready to go. And a lot of times it's not worth it. It's like, just get out there, sample your product out there, see how it goes, and then dial in your message after that point.
So one thing that at VinoShipper that you guys really help folks navigate is compliance. Can you share some insights into the main compliance hurdles for wineries looking to expand and how you guys navigate these challenges?
Sure. So when we started 18 years ago, there was a lot of people creating shopping carts and the rest, and we decided that we would actually do compliance first. One of those, we'll be out in 3 years type of thing. But there's 50 states, and you've got 45 of them, or 47 of them you can technically ship to. Every single one has a different set of regulations, taxes, dry zip codes. Now in California, you've got the CRV on wine and spirits. And in Colorado, you've got the wonderful 28-cent shipping fee that they have going in there. So there's all of these rules and regs, and then Massachusetts, wine is exempt from sales tax, but Maryland, it's an extra 3% for sales tax. And so what we did is we built all of these rules and regulations, and so that's what you have to face, and it's like sort of getting into the wine space. For those of you who are thinking about it, I know the last message was don't. I love entrepreneurs, and I think there's an opportunity, but you really do need to understand what you're getting into. So on the direct selling piece, the licenses, if you go get all the licenses and all the bonds and everything, the licenses are going to cost you at least $16,000 a year, and you're probably going to drop another $20,000 on bonds on top of that if you want to go everywhere. So that's the landscape that looks like for direct shipping. What we did as a business is we built this entire technology platform, and we actually built it on top of a wine structure. So we're a federally licensed producer, wholesaler, retailer, which is one of the beauties of California. You can actually technically license yourself as all 3 tiers. And then we have all of our indirect ship permits. Based on that structure, we took some sort of feathers out the cap of Gallo, who will go out and they will go, license in very large brands and do these national marketing campaigns, and they have a certain structure for doing that. We decided that, therefore, it's the internet, so what can you do? You can make all of that and shrink it down and do it for any client out there. And so we enter partnership agreements with our producers. And in essence, if it's in bottle, we can get them into 45 states in about 5 days after they start signing up with us. And because of that, we get distribution around, basically around the country very quick. So that's our solution that we do. We are very active on the regulatory side. Just a little plug for an organization called the Craft Wine Association, who we work with. I sit on their advisory advocacy group. And we are actually looking at, and we're gradually getting more support for a document called the National Direct Shipping Bill of Rights, which is a modernization of the old system, like getting rid of quantity limits and things like that are unnecessary. Which is another thing that is out there right now is quantity limits by person. There's a big movement in a number of states, and it's succeeded in 4 so far, that they've made it, instead of by person, by address. So if you and your partner have wine shipments, you can actually get them blocked because the other one bought their share this month and it stops you. So there's a lot of not good things going on in the market, and I think rather than when the last conversation was talking about, you feel like it's like either that black brand or this black brand, and it's like one or the other. I think what we've got to really focus on is actually growing the whole thing. I think we had the conversation about growing the pie. It's like, you don't want to be fighting over the same pie. We just actually need to grow it. And my feeling is DTC helps that as does self-distribution.
Yeah. When we had our conversation, you told a really cool story about one of your clients, and I thought that it was really helpful for the brands to understand also their power in putting them in being able to put themselves on shelves and to build all kinds of relationships. So. Considering VinoShipper's role in fostering connections, could you highlight a case where your platform was instrumental in bridging the gap between a winery and a retailer, resulting in a successful shelf placement?
Sure. So I did, and then I got home and I thought, gosh, I've like got 24 of these examples. But the DTC is an interesting way, and I will give this one very specifically, which is Spade and Sparrow is a brand that's out there. Caitlin Bristow, ex-Bachelorette. We've decided now as a business we should send every bachelor and bachelorette a little package saying how to market your wine, because somehow they all seem to get into this at some point in their time. But anyway, Caitlin did a really good job. And they came to us and they said, hey, we want to launch. And through our regular model, and we actually turned them down originally because they said they were going to come with so much wine and go DTC, and we're like, nah, it's just too much wine, you'll never sell it. So a few months later they came back and they said, okay, we'll do a smaller amount, and we launched them DTC. I was a little embarrassed because they sold out in 7 days, but the key thing was sell out because they created a demand. We did a new batch with them. Next time they sold out in 30 days. And we just kept on building over about 1.5 years, 2 years, that DTC side. And then they came to us and they said, what should we do next? And we said, well, do you think you could create a club? And they're like, yeah, we think we've got a good following. We could create a club. And what we didn't know is most wineries, if you're a small craft winery and you've got the tasting room and you're building that club, like slowly but surely, and you get your 150 members and all that sort of stuff. So Caitlin puts out this thing, says, hey, I'm creating a case club. So I'm gonna say about 8 hours later, she has 1,000 club members. And it's like, well, let's just hold the club at that level for a while. So we built the club, but what we were actually doing for her, we were capturing all the data of the pockets around the country where people were buying that product. Turned out there was a lot of people in Texas that were buying her product. And so they took that data and they actually went down to Target and said, hey, we've got all this data. We'd love to have you carry our brand. And Target said yes. And so they actually then went back to the wholesaler, Target did, and said, hey, we want you to bring this product in. And so now that brand is throughout Texas. But the reason they could do this is they had data to drive. There was little risk for the wholesalers because, I feel for the wholesaler. If you got a warehouse full of product, taking one more brand is a tough thing to do because if you put one in, you're probably taking one out. And you do have to have this, this turn of product. And so, the distributors have their work cut out, but if you can have somebody come in. And so we did that with them. We helped McBride Sisters when they first started out. We did their DTC at the very beginning. And then they migrated into club and then went into, they're everywhere now, which is fantastic. And we've done Hallmark Channel Wines. Yes, Hallmark even has their own thing. We launched they had a big club. The day we launched their club and actually ran the first release, I think it was like 1.2 million that they actually sold in wine. It was pretty fantastic. Star Trek wines, so all the Trekkies out there, there's Star Trek wines and those got developed this way. They've gone into spirits and now they're going into the 3-tier system. So there's this whole message about whether, the 3-tier system or the wholesale channel is good or bad. You need it without a doubt, but these guys are going to talk about it in more detail because, and I think it's John before just said about it, there is a massive investment to get into that side. So you better be ready, and DTC will actually help you get the understanding of what your market and who your clients are. So. There we go.
That's actually a really great segue because now I'd really love to talk about, on-prem. First, though, before I start talking to James about HEB, I'm going to plug HEB really quickly. I'm a Texan. We love HEB, y'all. And it doesn't seem like a grocery store would be like a tourist destination, but if you're ever in Texas, find a Central Market. It will change your life, okay? That is the end. All right. James, could you share a bit about how HEB approaches diversity and inclusion with the supplier diversity program, specifically within the wine industry?
Thank you. I think I live in the United States of Texas, that's what we call it. Thank you for that. So I want to play with that. How does HEB go about doing diversity, equity, inclusion, and supplier diversity, and to how I actually go about doing it inside of HEB. So as opposed to approaching the leaders, the president of the company, all the officers about supplier diversity, first of all, I never talked to the leaders about diversity and supplier diversity. I talked to them about the business, because that's more sustainable. We can have different opinions, but we can't have different facts. And so once you find out how everyone scores, so I'll start out meeting with the officers, other officers, and talk about what are the 2 or 3 things that keep you up at night about your business. Listening to that, I craft my DEI and my supply diversity plans around that, because everybody's busy. I want them, as opposed to when we say who owns cost containment, who owns customer service, everyone does. We have 155,000 partners. But when you talk about who owns DEI and supply diversity, our diversity management team, hold up. Let me reframe the arc on that. We all own it, but it's up to me. Early days, I would go into meetings and come out and say they don't get it. It's only until I accepted that responsibility on my shoulder and my team is that if they don't get it, then we fail to articulate the value proposition. Just like we ask suppliers to give us a one-page sales sheet, an elevator pitch, you need to do the same thing as supplier diversity and diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're going to say DEI going forward and SD much faster. So is to articulate their value proposition. So I talked to them about the business, how they can score. So one of the things for me for DEI is make it about the business. If we take a look at the state of Texas, it is becoming a minority-majority state. Right? Larger cities, we're already there. Smaller cities, we're on our way, right? And so I talk about the race gets down to how fast can HEB attract the changing minority culture and demographics in the state of Texas, because that change ends up being a customer. So we are trying to convert them into shoppers inside of HEB. So you have the old shopper conversion profile, shopper buyer. Everyone's a shopper. I want that shopper to buy inside of HEB. So how do I internalize that to make it make sense? It's about dollars and cents. The more shoppers we can convert to buyers inside HEB, that's market share. That's how we all get paid, based upon market share and based upon sales and profit. From a supplier diversity standpoint is, I never want a supplier diversity supplier to talk about, I am a diverse supplier. That may be true, but don't lead with that. You are a provider of quality goods and services who happens to be a minority supplier. That reframing changes the conversation for everyone. And so for me, it's about making it about the business and doing the things that make them more valuable to our company, that makes it make sense for our buying team, solving real problems. Some of the best, I guess, demonstrated best practices is when we had COVID, where a lot of suppliers across the world were keeping their goods for their countrymen. Makes sense. And so we had a lot of suppliers that were into wine and spirits. They retrofitted their products to actually take on hand sanitizers. So it was those small, diverse suppliers who really filled in the gap. But you have to be willing to mind their craft, mind the trade, have those candid conversations. How do you find them that can actually make a difference in how you go to market? It is all about business. It's just not just about, well, I do D&I because it's the right thing to do. Right thing to do is very subjective, based upon who you are and your moral compass. But when you make it about the business, then we don't have to fuss about that anymore. So that's really how I reframe the conversation. But what I see for my role is about driving access, right? Access to, and these gentlemen here drive access as well, right? And it's about access to opportunities. How do you get the opportunity to have the right conversation with the right person inside the organization? My role is to get you skilled up so you can have that engaging conversation that you're talking about dollars and cents and profit margin. And I heard someone say earlier about how does, the scorecard, how does the company make money? You have to be willing to say, what are your scorecards? How do you make money? And then you have to live inside of that. And so that's important. I think another level is that how you take a look at access to education. This is education. So we develop an online training tool to educate our suppliers on general business practice. So whether you even do business with HEB or not, you still need to understand business acumen. The next level is we have modules, about 40 modules that teach them how to do business with HEB. Well, how did I come up with those 40 modules? I got tired of the buyers and sourcing managers complaining about the supplier this. Then I got tired of the suppliers complaining about HEB buyers that. They gave me my material. So I have been doing that for about 10 years, listen to they don't do this, they don't know that. Or I can't get access to this, and I can't get access to that. I reframed that into modules and went to the buyers and say, what things that you need the suppliers to know that you find yourself repeating time and time again? That became a module. The suppliers, what do you don't like about doing business with HEB? Not everybody loves HEB like you and I do, right? And so we had to talk about what are the things that they had difficulty with, turn that into a training module. So now they're better prepared to do business with HEB, and we have seen the expectancy and the sales and the work that they do and the satisfaction between buyer and supplier relationship is at an all-time high. That's another piece. And then also from a national piece, so gaining access is I position myself to be in a position to help them from a national standpoint. So there's a group called the Food Marketing Institute, which is the think tank for everything retail, from advocating in Washington, D.C., any type of regulatory work that needs to be done, and they have a supplier diversity committee. Well, I've chaired that supplier diversity committee for the last 10 years. Here's why that's important. At that table is $500 billion of retail spend. That's HEB, Walmart, Target, UNFI, the list goes on, KeHE. And so in that position, I was able to introduce Angela to the Food Marketing Group board. Why? It's because I want her to talk about you guys. So a lot of times suppliers, not suppliers, but retailers are looking for certifications so they can work toward the $1 billion roundtable. That's not important to me. I don't do it for that reason. I do it because it's good for business. It's good for HEB's business. And if it's good for our business, it's going to be good for your business. It's going to be good for me because I want to be in this role the next 5 or 10 years or longer, right? And so with that being said is US Buy Black, right, by the US Black Chamber. That's an initiative to help small businesses, specifically black business, get certification. It's free and it's quicker than the larger third-party certification agency like WeBank or NMSDC, right? And so bringing those relationships together, triangulated between US Buy Black and working with AAAV and getting in front of those retailers that control $500 billion, now you make it easier to say yes and you take the no away. So those are some of the things that I find myself doing to position myself to have local influence and national influence and to gain access for the suppliers to really drive the conversation forward. Because the more volume you do, the more you're able to help us because a rising tide lifts all boats, right? And so when you drive costs out of your system and you drive efficiencies into your system, you can provide companies like HEB a lower cost and you get better at your craft. So those are some of the things I do to kind of reframe the conversation and just say, I do supplier diversity. I'm a professional first, and I just happen to do supply diversity and DEI. So those are some of the things I talk about that we do on a regular basis. I typically don't need notes because I love what I do and I'm very passionate about it, but it's so important. I took a few notes to make sure I didn't miss anything that I thought was pertinent for you. So I think, and then we talked about development, we got that down. Promotional planning. I sit in the apex of our promotional planning team. We launched an effort I talked about earlier called Be the Change, which spins on to be a better retailer. That talks about our suppliers that we have in our stores and to help build our stores. And so I sit on that team, and so when we have Black History Month, if you shopped our stores last month or this being Women's History Month, you'll see women-owned brand. AAAV, Hispanic Heritage Month. That's important because Texas is a very diverse state. And what I'm saying to our consumers is that I see you, I value you, I want you to shop our store. And again, the race gets down to who can endear. It's called brand endearment. Who can endear their shopper faster? And I think if you take a look at how HEB approaches the market, one, they understand the market because they're a Texas-based company, and they do a lot of work to truly understand the consumer, even down to our stores. Every store that we build is different. It's not because we lose the blueprint. It's because we try to tailor our stores to the market and the consumer where we actually operate. Thank you.
James just made magic and answered all of the questions in one answer that I had. But I do have just a general information question. You spoke about certifications that other retailers look for suppliers to have that you don't necessarily focus on. Can you speak a little bit about those certifications?
Thank you. And so certification is important. Just to say that you are who you say you are, because there's a lot of fronting that goes on in the industry, and you guys know what that means. You say that you're a minority company, but it actually belongs to someone else, and you're just out in the front, right? We call that fronting. That's our terms of endearment. So certification does at least say, I am who I say that I am, and that's critically important because it is important in this regard. If I say this is a black-owned brand, and then somebody calls me out and said, that company's not black-owned. That company is owned by X, Y, and Z company. They just have to be the face person. That's embarrassment that comes back to my team, right? So I want to make sure that at least if I say black-owned brand, woman-owned brand, Hispanic-owned brand, AAAV-owned brand, they are who they say they are. I don't do it for a scorecard or for a number. I'm driving sales to my store, right? And so that's why I try to do it. But for those who want to be a part of the $1 billion roundtable, those companies that spend $1 billion with minority suppliers, it's critically important for them because that information has to be audited to make sure they're not called out that you're sitting on the $1 billion roundtable and half of the suppliers in your supply chain aren't minority suppliers. Again, the whole goal is to make sure that you are who you say you are. So certification is good. There are a number of agencies you can go through to get certification. There are regional certification agencies that exist in your state, contiguous to where you live and where you have your manufacturing facility. In addition to US by Black, they're doing certification for free. Now that's powerful. So I don't want to embarrass anyone in this room, but I would venture to say that the whole purpose for bringing AAAV and US by Black together to present out at my retreat with my supplier diversity board for FMI, $500 billion sitting at the table, the selfish reason was to make sure that members of AAAV get certified. So I typically ask the question, how many of you are actually certified through US by Black, and we just eclipsed a year's time frame, so I'm not going to embarrass anyone, but you know for yourself whether or not you've taken that advantage or not, because that is critically important. It was done solely and expressly for the reason of getting you certified so you can take away the no from the gatekeepers in some companies who's chasing a number.
Okay, I have one more question that usually isn't an issue for DTC sales, but for on-prem, especially for large suppliers like HEB, it becomes quite problematic for wineries. In terms of volume, if I want to get my brand into HEB, how much wine do I have to have? How much wine do I have to provide for you guys?
Sure. From an efficiency standpoint, it's easy if you have an unlimited number of capacity. That makes it easy, right? However, I think I shared earlier with the group, I had a conversation with our wine buyer who's new to the wine desk, but not new to the industry because he spent 8 years in Napa Valley. So he's very familiar with wine. And so he and I have been working on this program, whereas if you don't have a lot of production, maybe you can go to select stores because you don't have to try to tackle that big beast. You talked about 120 stores. That's a lot because we don't want to. HEB has a lot of volume per square foot. We do a lot of volume, 420 stores. We're going to get close to $48 billion this year. That is a lot of foot traffic and a lot of volume. You can cause a small company, if you ramp them up too fast, they can implode. But that's not the goal, because if I cause you to implode and I took another item out, that's loss of dollars. And so what we try to do to have you grow at your own pace. Now, when you're dealing with the larger distributors, because of the money, they want a larger footprint, more stores. I get it, it's all about dollars and cents. So we've kind of reframed that conversation. Maybe we should start taking a look at sometimes on some brands, smaller brokers, distributors, consultants, because their hurdle rate is not so high and it's not cost prohibitive for them to carry the smaller brands. So we're kind of kicking the tires around what that looks like so we can catch some of those smaller brands that perhaps fall through the crack who don't have a large vineyard and can produce hundreds of thousands of cases. So we're working on that now to, again, about access. How do you get access regardless of size of volume? And that's intentional and it's forward thinking and it's about driving the whole initiative forward. So we're actually looking at that very close. And it's not just a pipe dream, because once HEB makes up their mind to do stuff, we move really, really fast.
Can I just add to that?
Yes.
Because this is very important, because the backside to that story is when I bring a brand to HEB and talk to James and his team, the first thing he asked me, and this is true, are you sure they are a black-owned brand? That is very important, because everything he's saying, there's a story behind the scene that I have to have with the buyer and with James' team. And it doesn't make a difference if you McBride sisters or who you are, we have this conversation. And the one thing HEB do not want you to do is fail. I gotta give that to HEB. The second thing that HEB does very well, they really do know their clientele. Meaning, if I bring your brand to HEB, they're not gonna tell me, Maurice, if I tell them, hey, I wanna put this, I know it's black folks, they're in Sugar Land, I know they're in Katy, I know they're here, he gonna be like, we got the data. This is the stores that we are going to put these black-owned brands in, because we know they're going to succeed because we got the data. So that is very, very important. So I'm just going to keep rolling on, even with the distributorship piece. So, because I got notes too. So it's very funny. I was at WSWA in Vegas, and they had this huge platform with all the big distributors there. Now I want you guys to really hear this. Southern Glazers, RNDC, Breakthrough, and all the big distributors, they came out and said, for the first time they was true, they said, we are not in the business of building brands. No. So the dream that you had back in the days that you can, well, if I get an HEB, if I get in Target, that's all I need. I'm gonna take it to Southern Glazers, and they're gonna put me out there. They're gonna take me on. Nope, not anymore. Southern Glazers is releasing 1,000 brands next month. I guarantee you, a lot of the brands, because me and Krishan's had this conversation, is gonna be one of her brands. We have to do more. And how do we do more? First, we have to give the little distributors a chance as well. We have to think outside the box. A lot of people don't know beer distributors now is jumping into the wine and spirit business. Guess what? They don't ask for the big, they ask for lower margins. We have to understand the new distribution network, Steve, and what he's doing. But also, how do we build the new generation of distributorship, how we get our business out there. We have to own our business. We have to go out there. We have to do our research, and we have to find the mom and pops. And sometimes mom and pops are very good. Sometimes they do a lot of business for us. They care about your brand because they have to move your product. That's how they get paid. Guess what? Republic National, R&D, Southern Glacier, they don't care about that anymore. They got all the big boys. So the distribution network is very important. I think another question you have for me is the storytelling piece. I know we run out of time, so that's why I'm moving along. The storytelling piece. It is very important for you to get your story out there. I can't come to James and be like, hey, I got this great brand. I promise you, James, it's gonna be good. That doesn't work at all. You have to get your story out there, because I'm sorry, the black movement is coming to an end, but you still have to get your story out there. And you have to be consistent with that story. And when I go to all my buyers, whether it's HEB, Belvmo, whoever it may be, I always bring the the supplier with me, because they don't want to hear from me. They want to hear your story, because your story is very, very important. Your story is going to get you in the door. It's going to get you to 10 stores. And you might want 15 stores, 20 stores, 50 stores. But like you say, you got to understand the expectations of that. Liquor to lips, it costs. I mean, that's a big deal. For 3 hours, $300. Times that 100 stores. I mean, that's a lot. And a lot of people don't really understand that. So when they come to me, I'll be very, very honest with you. Like, hey, look, this is hard work. Your distribution, you got to manage 15 different distribution companies. you gotta have if you're in 5 or 6 states, well, you gotta have people working that market. You know? And it's just honest, this business have changed. I love the DEI program, but we have to get to the point to where we want to be known as just a good brand, just having to be known by a minority. That's all it is. That's the transition that we have to make. Being a great brand, and we just have to be known, owned by a minority, woman, black, Jew, child, and it doesn't make a difference. So that's the biggest issue that we're facing. You know? There's a lot of hurdles out there. It's changing. But we don't have a James everywhere in every major retailer. And that's just the truth. You know, I appreciate James. I appreciate what Total Wines does. I appreciate Target as well. So we have to embrace this last DEI push, and we got to make the best of it. But we got to keep in mind that, hey, look, I just still want to be known as a great brand, just have to be known by a minority.
I want to thank all of these incredible panelists. You guys have been so informative. I know that I learned a lot. I know that the audience learned a lot. I'm so grateful that you guys were able to share, your experiences and information with us. So thank you very much. Thank you, AAAV.
Thank you.
And we're done.